Well, hello! Welcome back to my channel. Jashana here to talk about some friggin' books that I have read recently. I have 4 to talk about today. Woot woot. Do I have reviews written for all of them? Sort of. Okay. First up, Age of Empyre by Michael J. Sullivan. I'm not going to talk about this a heck of a lot. Well, by the time this video goes up, I was thinking in my head, like, I haven't done the live show yet as part of the read-along. But by the time this video goes up, I probably will have done it, so I can talk about it a little bit more in depth. But yeah, this is the final book in this series, book 6. This is adult fantasy, epic, kind of your classic or traditional fantasy. We have characters that are in some incredibly dire situations throughout this book, in this conclusion. Huge implications for this larger world and the history of this world. In this world of Elon that Michael J. Sullivan has created, where I think all of his books so far have been in this world. This is the oldest as far as chronological time in the world. So this is like the start of it all currently. And yeah, there were definitely some surprises along the way. Some good, some bad, some sad. We have lots of character development, as you would expect, I think, with the final book in a 6-book series. Characters who at the beginning of the series you probably didn't pay as much attention to, and it's funny because there's characters where I'm like, I should have known that they would be so important later on, but I just didn't. There's so many characters and each book kind of follows different ones, but the same. I don't know how to explain it, but if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. And it was just really cool to learn so much more about the mythology and the lore of this world. Like, I eat that shit up. I fucking love it. So learning about the gods and how they play in with each other and play into the world and the traditions and the stories and legends and whatnot, and just, oh, so good. It was very fast-paced, which worked for me for the conclusion to a series. Like, I want to feel like things are moving along and coming to a conclusion, you know? Kept my interest 100% throughout the entire book. I read it very quickly in like 2 days or something. Some themes here. I mean, throughout the series, there's definitely a theme of found family and friendship and hope, just having hope and faith in people and faith in humanity. This one, we definitely focus a lot on, I guess, like a theme of letting go. Letting go of things, making sacrifices for the greater good, and also the gray area between good and evil, and how you might think someone is one thing, but they're really something else, or just somewhere in between. And redemption. Is redemption even possible? Like, that was kind of a question that was posed here, and I just really enjoyed all of that. Obviously, I'm not going to talk extensively about like what goes on in this book, or I don't want to give any kind of spoilers, even alluding to things for the ending or anything like that. I will say I was satisfied with this book as the conclusion to this bigger story, right? I was happy with how things were tied up. I do wish that the final scene was different. I wish that the ending scene before the whole thing is done was different. And I know what I wish it was, which I will talk about in the live show where we talk spoilers. And I talk about it in the vlog. I did a reading vlog for this. It's really, I haven't fully finished editing it yet, but it's basically just my reactions as I'm reading. That's what it is. It's not some fancy vlog with like B-roll and like fun stuff like that. It's literally just me sitting there looking a mess in most of the shots. and like gasping and crying and tabbing things. But yeah, I just, the final scene, I'm just like, oh man, I have an image in my head of what it could be, and that would have been so amazing. But it didn't like ruin it for me or anything. I gave this one 5 Pushinicorns, as I predicted I would. So yay. Yay for that. I'm doing pretty good on the 5-star predictions. There's only one book left that I had, and I haven't started it yet, but I imagine I will. There was one that I DNF'd, though, that was on my 5-star predictions. So does that even it all out? I don't know. At any rate, thoroughly enjoyed this. Please, for the love of God, if you like adult fantasy, fucking read this series. It's so underrated on BookTube. I don't understand why. I truly don't I don't know if it's just the marketing for it. Like, it hasn't been pushed enough, and like, who am I, you know? But like, fucking read it. It's so good. Oh my God. And the read-along was so much fun. Like, thank you so much to everyone who participated. It was such a great time. I'm glad I did that. And yeah, everyone seems to have enjoyed it that did the read-along anyways. At least people who talk in the Discord and who pipe up like in the chat and stuff. But yeah, definitely recommend. The next book I completed, I won't talk about a lot because I've already talked about it once this year, because I read it once already this year, and I read it again, City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I did, though, this time, I actually read it on audio, which I had not done yet. So it was kind of like a new experience. It was sort of like a different story. It's the same story. But it's a very good audiobook. I quite enjoyed the audiobook. I can't remember the narrator's name. I'm the fucking worst with that shit. But I got it from the Libby app through the library. And yeah, I just, on a whim, I just was really feeling like I needed Vivian Morris in my life. I was just like, man, I want to talk to Vivian. I just always want to be talking to Vivian. So yeah, I listened to it, and it was a really good audiobook. I thought she was a very good narrator, whoever the narrator was. Sorry. Unsurprisingly, 5 Pushinicorns. This book, by the way, if you're new here to my channel, this is one of, if not my absolute, like, most favorite book of all time ever. It is historical fiction by Elizabeth Gilbert, obviously. Historical fiction. It's in the 1940s, and it takes place in New York. We have our main character, Vivian, who goes to live with her aunt in the city, and Vivian is very much a waspy, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant little girl that comes from money and privilege, and very much was in a little safe bubble in her little waspy world, and she's just kind of flailing through life. She gets kicked out of college, drops out of college, she fails out of college. College is not for her. And yeah, her parents are just like, go live with your Aunt Peg, I guess. And her Aunt Peg runs a very run-down playhouse theater, very much off-Broadway. And we follow, it's kind of a coming of age at first. We closely follow the first year or so that Vivian is in New York, and her coming into her own and having freedom and becoming, sexually liberated and whatnot. And then something happens, and something kind of dramatic happens that is a pivotal moment in Vivian's life. And then the rest of the book, and that's about halfway through, and then the rest of the book is the later years of her life. And this whole thing, the premise is a woman reached out to her at the very beginning, asking her, telling her, my father has passed away. Can you finally tell me who you were to him? And Vivian is saying, I can't tell you who I was to him, but I can tell you who he was to me. And then she tells the story. And I love it. The authorial voice is perfection. And there's just so many quotes that I saved. I want to live in this book. I love it. So anyways, I'm going to stop talking about it now because I've been talking about it for too long. But yeah, probably a book I will read at least once every year until I die. And then this book I actually haven't shown yet in a haul because it was just recently sent to me by the lovely Miss Robin at Robin Reads. Thank you so much, Robin. You're so sweet. Her channel will be linked down below. I've linked her channel before and talked about her channel. You should go subscribe if you haven't, because she is a delight. But I actually ended up listening. I had started listening to it on audio when I got this, but that is Hood Feminism by Mikki, Kendall. And I'm very glad to have a physical copy because I will go through and reread at some point and kind of highlight things and tab things. Yeah, this is a great book. The kind of subtitle is Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot. And it says, today's feminist movement has a glaring blind spot, and paradoxically, it is women. Mainstream feminists rarely talk about meeting basic needs as a feminist issue, argues Mikki, Kendall. But food security, access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, a living wage, and medical care are all feminist issues. All too often, however, the focus is not on basic survival for the many, but on increasing privilege for the few. How can we stand in solidarity as a movement, Kendall asks, when there is the distinct likelihood that some women are oppressing others? In her searing collection of essays, Mikki Kendall takes aim at the legitimacy of the modern feminist movement, arguing that it has chronically failed to address the needs of all but a few women. An unforgettable debut, Kendall has written a ferocious clarion call to all would-be feminists to live out the true mandate of the movement in thought and in deed. And there is a blurb from Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote City of Girls. It says, my wish is that every white woman who calls herself a feminist, as I do, will read this book in a state of hushed and humble respect. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think it is a very important book for anyone who feels like they are a feminist to read. Because yeah, I mean, it is what it says it is, right? The different chapters are, like the first chapter is Solidarity is Still for White Women. There's a chapter on gun violence, a chapter on hunger, a chapter on Black girls don't have eating disorders, which is, they can, obviously, but that's just the title of the chapter, you know what I'm saying. The fetishization of fierce. Fear and feminism, race, poverty, and politics, housing, parenting while marginalized. All things that, like, just intersectionality, right? Having intersectional feminism and realizing that all of these kinds of issues are feminist issues because, I mean, for a lot of them, like, they affect women at higher rates, right? And particularly in a lot of cases, in most cases, marginalized women, especially. So, yeah, very important read, highly recommend. And the audiobook is great. Mikki Kendall actually narrates the audiobook, and I think that just brings an added little bonus to the audiobook because it's almost like memoir-esque. A lot of it is her talking about her personal experiences growing up or in relationships, etc. So it's really great that she's the one narrating the audiobook. For me, I thought that was really great. And I think it was successful in what it is, you know, trying to do, the message that it is putting out into the world. I think it was definitely successful in that. I gave this one a 4.5 Pushinicorns. Quite enjoyed it. And the last one to talk about today, I do not have a physical copy of because I read it as an e-arc from NetGalley, and that is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This one is adult fantasy, and I will just read the synopsis for this one. Exiled by her despotic brother when he claimed their father's kingdom, Malini spends her days trapped in the Harana, an ancient cliffside temple that was once the source of the magical deathless waters, but is now little more than a decaying ruin. A servant in the regent's household, Priya, makes the treacherous climb to the top of the Harana every night to clean Malini's chambers. She is happy to play the role of a drudge, so long as it keeps anyone from discovering her ties to the temple and the dark secret of her past. One is a vengeful princess seeking to steal a throne. The other is a powerful priestess seeking to save her family. Their destinies will become irrevocably tangled, and together they will set an empire ablaze. We have some queer representation in this book, which was nice to see. So for the characters, I really enjoyed these characters a lot. They have very complicated, difficult relationships with the people in their lives. Priya in particular has very complicated relationships with her temple siblings, with her family essentially, and kind of with love in general. She has kind of a fucked up, I guess, relationship with love, like an understanding of what love is and looks like. It's pretty toxic and bad for her. And Malini is very interesting to me. She's a likable character, and without saying too much, I'll just say she's a very likable character, but she's a character that throughout the book, you don't know if you should like her. I'll just say that. And then Bhumika, she's incredibly interesting. I really liked her. We didn't see her as much. She's not one of the two main characters, but she was just really interesting. And I'm super curious to see what happens with her as the series goes on, because I just have a feeling she's gonna play a very pivotal role. I really enjoyed this world, the culture, the traditions, just the world in general that was built. I thought it was really interesting, and I don't know, I was immersed in it. The magic I thought was cool and interesting as well, and how it's kind of tied into their religions. That was a nice touch for me. It just felt like a very full and fully realized world. As far as the writing style or authorial voice, I would say it was like slightly above average for me. It's not that often that I'm struck by the authorial voice of a fantasy book. Every now and then it happens, but usually I'm just kind of like more there for the characters and the plot. So this was like slightly above average, nothing that like blew me away necessarily, but I did enjoy the writing style. There are moments where it's very atmospheric and kind of full of yearning, and I enjoyed that. So the plot and then also the pacing, I've said many times before how occasionally I can get a little confused when we have a fantasy world with like all these different names for the different people and the places and different titles for these different royals and this and that. And I did get quite confused for a little while with this book. Because the temple name and then the city name and then the country name of the one place were all very similar. So I kept being like, wait, is that the fucking temple, or is that the people? Is that the country? Is that the city they're in? And it took me some time to get that sorted. But I did finally get it sorted. Like, no, that's the city. Okay. And then it's also an imperialistic. The pacing I thought was solid. I would say that the beginning part of the book, I would say like the plot is slower. There's not as much happening in the plot, but I still thought the pacing was good. And I liked that, without spoiling anything, I liked that the ending of this, we definitely had some things that had conclusions, but everything wasn't wrapped up in a nice, happy little bow, necessarily. And I enjoyed that. Some themes that I garnered from this, love, and particularly like toxic love, emotional manipulation, family, kind of what does family mean, also toxic family, nationalism, freedom, like I said, imperialism, religious fanaticism for sure in here, content warnings for, murder, content warnings for like death by fire, I will say, sacrifice, like religious sacrifice, forced sacrifice, human sacrifice. So yeah, be aware of that if any of that sounds like something you might need to be wary of. So, was it a good time? Yes. It did take me a hot minute to really get super invested in this, but I was enjoying it right from the get-go. But it wasn't until probably about 20% in that I was super invested. But by then, I definitely got very invested in it. I wanted to see what was going to happen with these characters. Definitely going to be continuing with the series and picking up a physical copy of this book. I just really ended up caring about these characters. I wasn't like in love with them or like, oh my God, I just, my babies. I wasn't like that, but I just was like, I like these characters. They're very interesting. I want to know what's going to happen with them. So I ended up giving this 4.25 Pushinicorns. That is my truly great, mostly had a great time range of ratings. And there we are. Those are the books I'm going to talk about today. Leave a little emoji if you don't have anything else to say, but you just want to say hello. Obviously, if you've read any of these, let me know what your thoughts were. Basically, all of these you should read. Highly recommend all 4 of these books. I just realized that. Nice. All were above 4 stars, and 2 of them were 5. I mean, City of Girls, like, duh, that was obviously going to be 5. Who's surprised? Nobody. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.